Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I am audible and my voice is clear. Welcome to the workshop called as Beyond the Empty Chair, Healing from Emotional Unavailability in Childhood. Today, we are going to talk about a couple of sensitive topics and themes. So, during the entire workshop, if you think that this is something I am not comfortable sharing about, you can definitely mention that in the chat box. Okay? So, let's just start with it. So, a brief introduction about me and our co host today. So, my name is Apeksha, and I have been working with Mindtribe since a couple of months, and I'm a trainee psychologist. My area of expertise lie in dealing with clients who go through anxiety, who are generally associated with a grief induced from a traumatic experience, and also emotional dysregulation. And today we have Harsh Deshmukh as our co-host. He has been working with Mindtribe since a couple of years, and he's a psychologist. Let's just go ahead. A couple of norms. If you want to share something with everybody present here, if you want to share your experience, please make a point to raise your hand. There's a provision provided in the Google Meet. You can do that, and then accordingly, we can have a conversation about it. The next is confidentiality. Please make sure that whatever discussion which are happening in the workshop do not go out of this setting. Third, promoting respectful communication. Each and every one of us have joined this workshop with an intention of learning something new or probably finding something new about ourselves. So let's be respectful about other people's experiences and let's be respectful while communicating with other participants as well. Next is mic off. If, like, for example, if you want to say out something, you can definitely raise your hand, but please make sure to keep your mic off during the entire workshop. The last is no screenshots and recordings. Please refrain from clicking the screenshots or screen recordings of the workshop because this entire workshop is the intellectual property of Mindtribe. And I would request each and every one of you to not record it. A small disclaimer for all of you, please understand that this space is only for learning and reflection. It's not a therapy session, it's not a group therapy session, and there is no way we are trying to put out any diagnosis here. We will gently, explore our childhood emotional experiences with the name of awareness. We're not trying to blame anyone, we're just trying to be more aware and what exactly can be done so that we try to make a calculated effort to change our patterns. Next is some themes, as I rightfully said in the beginning, they might feel a little tender, they might feel a little sensitive, you might feel emotional as well. So please be very kind to yourself. If you need a small break to just get a glass of water, you can definitely communicate that with me. Last is you're always free to pause, to take a break, or just choose not to share. We are trying to create a very safe space here. That is what the entire point of this workshop is, just educating you at the same time creating a space for all of you. Okay? Now, before we jump into the topic, I have just a very small something for all of you. As you can see, a couple of emoticons are given here. And what those emoticons stand, like for example, heart means felt loved and emotionally connected. So, like for example, when you were younger at that point of time, what type of parental emotional connection you felt? That is what you have to express via emoji in the chat box. The next is a broken heart, you felt hurt or you felt emotionally disconnected. The third is you felt unseen or invisible. And the last is you felt silenced. Your views were not entertained, or you felt like I was unable to express myself. So, what you have to do? You have to just open your chat boxes and just mention the emojis. And if you think you can't do that, just mention how exactly you felt as a child when it comes to your relationship with your parents. Everyone, just please start sharing your thoughts. If you want to open your mics, you can definitely do that. Please raise your hand and open your mic. Third for Vivek. Okay. You can do this as well. You can just start mentioning the number. Okay. Here we can see a mix of a lot of emotions. Okay. Others, please feel free. Fourth for Kanak. Perfect. For Navya, that's first. Good. For Rishija, third and fourth. Fair enough. Fourth for Atish. Others, Please feel free to put your opinions in the chat box. Fourth, second and third, second and fourth, first and second, perfect, perfect. Third and fourth, second and fourth. Thank you so much, everyone, for uh, being courageous enough to just put out what you felt as a child when it comes to your childhood. Not a problem, not a problem. Yes, Akshita? Okay. So now, as you can see, a lot of people are feeling multiple things here, correct? It's not like, oh, I am just feeling unseen or invisible, or I'm just feeling silent or unable to express, or I'm just feeling unloved, correct? A lot of things are being felt. Sometimes you might feel love, sometimes you not might feel love, sometimes you might feel unseen, sometimes you might feel that, oh, I'm unable to express myself, right? So this is what we are trying to understand today. That when you were a child at that point of time, understanding what you felt could have been a task. As you are growing up, you are understanding that, oh, I felt like that. Correct? So this workshop is made in such a way which will help us understand that what our childhood relationship with our parent has shaped us as adult at this point of time, and how exactly, if the patterns are dysfunctional, how can we break them. Okay, let's go ahead. Now, just a small briefing for all of you. What are we exactly going to do? First, we are going to understand what emotional unavailability is. Now, everybody must have this perception in their mind that, oh, this person is not being emotionally available. This person is not understanding me. This person is not understanding my emotion. Probably my parent is not understanding what I'm feeling. They're just not letting me express. They're just not making an effort to understand what I'm feeling. Correct? So in the first section, we're going to understand what exactly an emotional unavailable parent can look like. We can also understand its sign and how it has impacted us. Next is parenting patterns. We have understood emotional unavailability, then later on we'll understand what type of parenting patterns could we see. We'll explore different styles of unavailable parents. Next, practical strategies. Now, we've understood that this is what emotional unavailability looks like. These are the parenting styles. But when it comes to understanding what exactly can be done as an adult, that is where practical strategies come into the picture. Correct? And now, practical strategies will definitely work if we are consistent with it. But what exactly are the long term strategies? How to build resilience? How to start the healing process? What exactly emotional growth is all about? That is what we are going to talk in the last section. Anyone, do you have any doubts with the contents which I have put on the screen? If no, everyone just give me a small thumbs up. Perfect. So let's just go ahead.
Apeksha, actually, I had some query. Here, can I go ahead?
Yes, Vivek. Yes, Vivek. Please go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. What we are means thinking of unavailability, emotional unavailability is you mean to say parents not in touch, or it can be a differentiation between the siblings also, right? Or how is it?
See, today, Vivek, we are going to talk about what an emotional unavailable parent looks like. Emotional unavailability can be manifested in different contexts, in relationships as well,
Okay,
in friendships as well. But today, we are going to talk about parents and how that has shaped you, probably, or everybody present in this meet as an adult. Okay?
okay.
Yes. Now, let's first understand how to identify the key traits. We do understand when we feel something which is not right, when we feel like we are being silenced, when we are not being seen as a child, we felt something is off. But what exactly an emotional unavailable parent can look like? Let's just start understanding that. Okay. So there might be a very high possibility where the parent might seem a little distant, a little withdrawn, or hard to reach emotionally. It's not like they're not doing things for you. They're doing everything possible in their capacity, correct? But when it comes to emotionally nurturing a child, somewhere along the line you cannot develop that emotional intimacy with your parent. So that is where you can see the parent seems a little distant, a little withdrawn, or they're just not reachable. So that is one of the first sign of emotional unavailable parent. The second would be the parent is too preoccupied with your mother or with your father. They're just too preoccupied with their own needs. Like, for example, somewhere along the line, we must have experienced when we were young that our father just goes to the office, just comes back home, and when you're trying to, have a conversation with him about something which happened in the school or probably in the college, he's just probably not in that state of mind to respond to what exactly you are asking. Correct? Now, this might happen once or twice, but when this keeps on happening consistently, it gets converted into pattern. Correct? So, the preoccupation with his own needs or rarely responding to the child emotions can also be one of the trait. The next is emotional responses are inconsistent or unpredictable. Now, this could be more along the lines where, you have gone to a parent just to have a conversation to your mother or your father, who you think you're close to, right? And you were expecting a different response, but you got a response which was absolutely unpredictable. You were expected to be understood, but you got yelled at. Correct? So those kind of emotional responses can definitely create a gap in the relationship. And that will make the person behave in such a way that they're unsure how to act, because we don't know. When we don't know how the person is going to react or respond, we are very careful. We start walking on eggshells around them, right? That is also one of the trait. The next is they might avoid responsibility or difficult conversation. As I rightfully said, all of these patterns and all of these traits are interconnected to each other. Sometimes when a parent is too preoccupied with their needs, at that point of time, they don't understand that what the child actually needs. The child just needs to have a conversation. The child wants to just be validated at that point of time. They just do not want a solution. They just want someone to hear them out. Correct? So what happens is, at that point of time, because of lack of emotional intelligence somewhere along the lines, which we will understand why it happens the way it does, they might avoid the responsibility, or they might not want to have that difficult conversation. All of you might have experienced that one when you were in, I think, 12th or 11th grade, when you started exploring yourself, when you started understanding who you are as a person, when you had your own values, when you had your own views, when you started probably back answering your parent, not with an intention of disrespecting them, but your views and their views did not match, right? So at that point of time, just having that difficult conversation or just trying to come on the same page would have been difficult. So that is also is one of a very important trait when it comes to being emotionally unavailable. Now, a question for all of you: has any one of you experienced that in your childhood? Please feel free to use the chat box, or you can open your mics. For the people who are just putting a thumbs up, are you comfortable sharing an experience with us in the chat box? Yes, please go ahead. Yes, Reju, please go ahead.
Yeah. So as you already mentioned that they have been doing everything within their capacity and were neglectful of the emotions, same happened
Correct.
with me. They
Correct.
would be
Correct.
giving me the best education possible. They would be giving me food,
Mm-hmm.
dress,
Mm-hmm.
everything. I mean, all the
Mm-hmm.
material comforts were uh, given every day, every time. But
Mm-hmm.
the problems that happened between them were not behind the closed doors, or they didn't even realize that their daughter was um, viewing all this, and many a time or
Mm-hmm.
mostly I was the person who had to pacify my mother, just
Mm-hmm.
like how we would do it in a counseling session or in a therapy
Correct.
session.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So you basically
So
adopted the role of the caretaker in that equation, right?
yes. As a
Correct.
child, I was parentified, and when I became an
Mm-hmm.
adult, I was treated like a child.
Correct. So I'm very happy about the fact that you are at least aware as to what has happened in the past. And I think later on, after the end of the workshop, if you think that if you want to reach out to any one of us for help, we'll definitely do that.
Sure.
Right?
Thank
Not a problem. So anyone else you want to share any experience? Please, this is a safe space. None of this is going to go out. Please feel free to open your minds and share your experience. Anyone? You can use the chat box as well. Yes, Kanvi, you've mentioned experienced all in one way or the other. Okay? That does happen. Emotional unavailability can look like all four of them. Each one of you might have experienced all these four at different walks of your life. Correct. So as all of us know, this topic is extremely multifaceted. Correct. I relate to the third and the fourth point of the prior slide. Okay. Do you want to share an experience by any chance, Dushpriya? If you're comfortable, you can definitely just give us an example as to how those points were resonating with you. Yes, Akshita, please go ahead.
Most of the time, it felt like I couldn't share what I felt like because of my father's anger issues. So I just felt like bottling up my emotions until it got too late.
Correct, correct. So you just felt like his reactions were so unpredictable that you never felt safe to go in and have that conversation, right, Akshita?
Yeah, I grew fearful of him, so I just rather not talk.
Correct, correct. But I hope you at least talk to either of the parent. Are you comfortable talking to your mother about it?
She knows, but sometimes you just want that kind of support from your father, and then he's just not there.
Correct, correct. I do understand this is one of the most difficult experiences to go through when you want to talk to someone, but you cannot because the ways are unpredictable. I understand. I'm glad that everyone is trying to resonate with the themes which you have presented. Thank you so much, Akshita, for sharing. Yes, Vivek, please go ahead.
Apeksha, actually, from my childhood, we are five siblings. So what I felt is that my parents are means from the beginning I felt that I means whether I'm wrong or right I don't know. I feel
Mm-hmm.
that they don't like much than other siblings. So I always feel emotionally untouched with them. So
Okay.
how is it? Actually, I don't know. Still, I feel the same. Still, I am 40 plus, and I still feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
So how to overcome this? And means does it affect other relationship also? Does the negativity which is with this from the beginning, does it means take in other part of the life also?
Understandable, Vivek, understandable. Like, for example, you could see that your other relationships are getting affected because of the relationship you share with your mother. Now, to get the exact solution of this, Vivek, I would request you to wait till the end of the workshop because, as I rightfully said, the contents of the workshop will also give you practical strategies as to how you're supposed to cope with it and recognize the patterns. Correct? So, let's just
Yeah,
meet
yeah,
at the
sure,
end of
sure,
the
sure.
workshop. If you still have any doubts, you can definitely reach out. Okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. We'll just go ahead. Now let's understand why behind the traits. Okay, we have understood that our parents have been emotionally unavailable in our past. They have behaved in a certain way which has stayed with us for a really long time, and I think probably it stays with us right now as well. Correct, and that's why sometimes in our other relationships, those patterns might be something which we have noticed, right? But now let's just try to broaden our horizons and just change our perspective a little and understand why. Why do they behave in this way? Is there a plausible explanation to it? Are they wired that way? Let's just understand that. The first one is childhood wounds. Many times, what happens is our parents have also grown up without an emotional support. So they themselves sometimes don't know, oh, how am I supposed to regulate the emotions, right? So what they learn to shut their feelings down, right? I think many of you probably have developed that coping mechanism, as Akshita also mentioned that, oh, I'm just so scared of sharing things with him now because he's very unpredictable. There might be a very high possibility that he has experienced same with his father or his mother, correct? So their childhood wounds and sometimes lack of self-awareness has stopped them breaking that pattern. The next would be fear of emotion. Sometimes expressing feelings might feel very unsafe, correct? As all of you have shared your experiences that, oh, I just don't feel safe enough. I just don't feel safe enough to express I want to say. As you rightfully shared all of your experiences. There might be a very high possibility where they might have not felt safe enough, but they did not get the enough time or they did not have the enough resources to understand what was happening. And that has converted into their parenting style. Correct? Next is preoccupation. Sometimes what happens is Insecurity makes them centered. And I am not talking about our general perception of insecurity. It is more along the lines that somewhere along the line they might be so preoccupied with taking care of the entire family and just satisfying other needs for such a long period of time. Somewhere along the lines when they get that free time to sit with themselves, they just try to put their needs as a priority. That could lead to preoccupation. Now, this might happen for a couple of times, but if this happens again and again, again and again, again and again, there is a very high possibility that would change into a pattern. But because of rare of reflection, they're not understanding the repercussions or the after effects on their child. So that is also one of the most important factor. The next is historical and societal influences. Please understand that all of us stay in Indian subcontinent. Parents belong from a different generation altogether. Correct? So according to the old school parenting philosophies, all of us know that emphasizing on obedience and discipline was something everyone looked after. So more along the lines that child's emotional needs or individuality, it's not like they're trying to stop that. It's not like they're trying to control it. It's not like they don't want their child to be emotionally secure. It's not like they don't want their child to be they don't want their child to have those emotional needs not met. But at the same time, emphasizing on the obedience and discipline takes more precedence, is what I'm trying to say. So it's a very humble request to all of you that yes, you might have a little dysfunctional relationship with your parent, but please be more aware about the fact that why it happens the way it does. There's a very plausible explanation as to why they might behave in a certain way. Correct? Okay, there are a lot of messages in the chat box. Let me read it. Yes, Srilakshmi, I know that's the worst part, but somewhere along the lines, since all of you are aware, since all of you are part of this workshop, I want all of you just to be more self aware and start taking calculated actions which are going to help you to form more meaningful connections. Perfect. Let anyone, any questions? If not, we'll just go ahead. Now again, a question for all of you. Yes, Vivek, do you have anything to say? Please go ahead.
Can I see the first 4 points?
Vivek, you're not audible. Can you be a little more louder?
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
So I just wanted to see the last slide once, the 4 points which I missed.
Okay. Others, a question for all of you. Since all of you have understood the why behind the trains, I just want to understand if this has helped changing your perspective, if this has helped seeing your parents as an individual rather than your parent being per se. Please feel free to open your mics and
Uh,
give out your opinions. Yes,
Excuse me.
Vivek. Yes,
Did
Vivek.
we
Please go
have
ahead.
did we have any other slide before this?
Oh no, I was talking about emotional availability. Then we came back to a reflective question, and this,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, not a problem. Anyone? Do you think your perspective has been changed by any chance? Yes, yes, Mayuri, please go ahead.
Ma'am, does this have any correlation with birth order?
There might be a very high possibility where the correlation will be with the birth order, but you have to understand that here you might be thinking from your perspective, right? Because you think you are the middle child or the older child or the younger child. That's why you think your parent perceive you in a certain way. But we have to also understand their perspective, correct? And when can you understand your perspective? When you try to understand the background they have come from, right?
Okay.
Yes.
As I'm
Yes.
second child, I always felt that felt the need to shut down myself in order to give a chance to express my younger sibling, and
Mm-hmm.
many times whenever I tried to express myself,
Mm-hmm.
my parents used to told me that you have elder sibling, uh,
Mm-hmm.
um, whoever like who will express your need as well as them their own needs, so you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to speak every time. And uh, so I felt that any correlation with my birth order.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to parenting style, the correlation is very prevalent. But at the same time, it's very important for you to understand, for us to actually dwell deeper into it and try to understand what kind of traits your parent have been showing as per your birth order. That will require a lot of work. Correct? So in this workshop, what you can do is you can just try to understand their perspective and what exactly can be done so that you can probably rewire your thought process and at the same time bring more awareness. If you want to explore that, you can definitely come for a session. Okay, Mayuri? Let's just go ahead.
Yes.
Now let's just understand what are the types of parenting style or what are the types of parents. Okay. Now first could be a driven parent. Now what exactly does a driven parent look like? Sometimes, a mother or a father, they just want us to get top grades, to excel in sports, to be all arounder. Not a bad thing, correct? But it has to align with the thought process of the child at that point of time. If the child is okay doing that, if the child is reaching to a stage of burnout, if the child is actually enjoying it, or he's just doing it for getting validated from the parent, right? So when that happens, and when the child is just not satisfied, the child is very tired and he just constantly wants to prove himself with an intention of being validated by a parent, that is what a driven parent looks like. Because somewhere along the lines, that gets manifested into someone who actually seeks a lot of validation from people outside of their circle. Because they think that, oh, if I do not perform well in life, if I do not perform well in general, I will not be validated. So that what is a driven parenting look like. Second would be a rejecting parent. Now, what exactly a rejecting parent can look like? Sometimes you're just upset about something. Something has must have happened in the school, right? And it might not be that big, but it has hurt you. Correct? Every person is different. Every person will have different emotional quotient. It was something small according to others, but it was very big for you. You come home, you talk to your parent about it. But somewhere along the lines, the parent is just busy. Your mama or papa, they're just busy with something at that point of time. And they just dismiss it, not with an intention of hurting you, but for them, it was more along the lines that why are you reacting in such a way? They would say things along the lines that, oh, stop crying. You are putting this out of the proportion in whatever regional languages you use. So at that point of time, they might not understand the repercussions of it, but somewhere along the lines, you as a child, you might have felt hurt. Now, this might happen for a couple of times, but if it's happening again and again, that is what a rejecting parent can look like, where your emotional needs are rejected. Now, what is an emotional parent? Someone who always have been holding you at a pedestal as a child and as an adult as well. As Riju has rightfully mentioned, that she was someone who had to take up the role of a caretaker here. She was someone who had to, be someone who had to dismiss the conflict. So she feels that she was parentified, right? So somewhere along the lines, that is what happens when a parent is overly emotional, where you need to tend to take care of your parent. Vivek, just give me a couple of seconds. I will get back to you in some time. The next is a passive parent. Now, who exactly is a passive parent? Where you do not feel supported enough. You're fighting with your father, you're fighting with your mother. But somewhere along the line, you just want to support. Not because you're a child, but because somewhere along the lines, you feel that is the correct thing to do. An emotionally available parent will try to dismiss the conflict or will try to find a solution to the conflict, but not be passive about it. How does that get manifested in the adulthood is what we'll see in the next slide. Now, just a question for all of you. All of you are familiar with the type of parent or the type of parenting style. Just a quick poll. Just mention in the chat box if any one of you had any of this type of parent. If you have been driven, if you had a driven parent, you have a passive, emotional, rejecting, anything, just please make the use of chat box. Rejecting and emotionally absent, rejecting, okay. Others, passive, okay. I will explain the first one. Others, if you have understood all, okay, it's hurtful when you try to understand everyone. No one does for you. They just treat you like fair enough. Yes, Sally, I understand that is a very difficult experience to go through. Passive, emotionally unavailable and emotionally hyperactive. Mixed, correct. A mixed of all mentioned, okay. Anyone else want to use the chat box or open your mics and just give out your experience to us? Okay. And emotionally abusive and narcissist. Okay. Yes, Sukanya, when it comes to an emotionally abusive or a narcissist parent, that is something which we will have to deal in the private sessions, because this is the category of a parent which I am talking about. This completely depends on your experience. So if you have any doubts, you can wait back at the end of the workshop and we will definitely talk about it. Driven and rejecting, emotional parent. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for being kind enough to give out your options. So now, let's go to the next slide.
Ma'am, please explain the first one.
The driven
Again.
one. So driven one
Yes,
is basically someone who just have a lot of expectations from a child, but those expectations are not aligning with the child's current state of mind. The child is probably not emotionally secure enough to get things done. Like for example, I want you to have full marks. I want you to be good at every sport. And if the child does not perform well, the child is belittled. So when that happens, they do not feel emotionally safe. So that is what a driven parent can look like. Okay.
Okay, is it type of controlling parenting?
I'm sorry. Could you
Is
repeat?
it controlling parenting?
Okay. So, Soumya, I'm not understanding what you're saying. What you can do is you can type in the chat box and then I can take up your question. Okay. Now, just a small case study for everyone to understand what exactly we have read about up till now. So, Arav grew up with a critical father and an emotionally distant mother. Okay? Often stepping in to keep the peace by taking blame, by staying silent, or by distracting his younger sister during conflicts. As an adult, he continues to put others' needs above his own, taking extra responsibilities at work and acting as a mediator in friendships as well. While seen as dependable and caring, Arav often feels drained, unseen, and valued only for managing others' emotions. I hope all of you are with me and you have understood what this case study is all about. So now, let's try to understand which childhood role did Arav adopt. So a question for all of you again, what do you think? Has Arav been the hero? Has Arav been the scapegoat? He's been the caretaker? What exactly has he been? Okay, caretaker. Anyone else? Or he has been the lost child? Okay, correct. Caretaker, C. C, okay. Others? Please feel free to put the answers in the chat box. Scapegoat, okay. Correct. Correct. Thank you so much everyone for putting out the options. Now we'll understand what exactly are the key takeaways from this case history. See, now when it comes to Arav, from his case study, we can see that somewhere along the lines, he has adopted all the roles. He's tried to be the perfect child. He has been the scapegoat as well. He's been the caretaker where he's trying to, dissipate the conflict with the younger sister. And as he has grown up, he's become the lost child. But what are the key takeaways? You have to understand that somewhere along the lines, Arav can't change his past. But he can definitely change his pattern. Everyone, recognition is the beginning of the transformation. The day you realize that, oh, I am probably exhibiting these traits is when you will make a real change. So once we name the role we have been playing throughout our lives, we can start writing a new script. So I hope this case study has helped you give an insight as to how awareness works. Let's go ahead. Just a small ad break for all of you. So I'll just give you a briefing as to what one-on-one counseling looks like. A definition is given to you. It is a confidential, personalized session between a client and a trained therapist. Therapy is not only just for the concern, it's for your own personal growth, thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. It helps with every type of your problem solving, and a goal is set in a specific way, where you work towards your personal as well as your professional goals with the support of the therapist. Now, let's just understand a couple of counseling misconceptions. Counseling is only for those who are sick. That is absolutely not true. Counseling is for your holistic well-being and your holistic growth. It helps you form better relationships. It helps you form better friendships. It helps with your academic success. It helps with your career advancement. So it's whole in general. Now, why choose Mindtribe? Correct? Please understand that we have one of the most highly talented counselors, highly trained counselors. You can definitely visit the website and see the list of the counselors presented on the website. Second, we definitely offer affordable charges. It completely depends on the seniority of the counselor. It's a minimal investment. The first session costs rupees 449. So if anyone wants to explore counseling, if anyone thinks that, oh, I want help and I'm going to be committed to counseling, then definitely reach out. If you have any urgent questions, we can take it up at the end of the workshop. Okay? The other information will be definitely shared to you in the group. Any questions, anyone, regarding this? Perfect. So let's go ahead. Yes, Vivek?
Abhishek, I just wanted to understand about the counseling session. The counseling session, suppose I am doing counseling session 1-to-1. So the sessions will last till my problem resolves, or is it for a single session only? The charges which we are taking.
For the first session, it will be 449. Later on, as per the seniority of the psychologist, the session charges will change.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. So I hope everyone had a good time with this small ad break. Now let's understand the long-term impacts on adult children. We have understood what emotional unavailability can look like. We have understood why parents behave in a certain way. We've also understood the type of the parents. Now we are going to understand that how exactly that is affecting people present in the workshop or overall as an adult. So first would be emotional loneliness. So it could feel like there is a lot of emptiness from lack of connection with parents in the childhood. Like it's more along the lines that, oh, I have felt a certain way, but when I'm trying to form relationships, I could see the same pattern coming up in my relationship as well. Correct? Which will lead to emotional loneliness. Second is struggles with intimacy. Somewhere along the lines, you might be drawn to partners who might showcase the same emotional unavailability in relationships what your parents have shown when you were a child. Right? The next is self-sacrifice. You will develop a tendency to put others first all the time. You will not take care of your needs. It's okay to put others first, but not at the cost of where your needs are not satisfied as well. There has to be a balance. Correct? So you might feel very guilty when it comes to satisfying or taking care of your own needs and your own wants. The next is low confidence. You may lack confidence, and I'm not talking about confidence at your workplace or when it comes to confidence. I'm not talking about the generic confidence. In general, when it comes to self confidence, you might feel like I'm not confident enough to take actions for myself, which will be proven better for me. You always might feel that, oh, I might get rejected, or you might always downplay your needs and your own achievements. Correct? So that is also happens when somewhere along the lines your inner child was not protected enough. Role self and fantasies. You start to create a pseudo self version of yourself. You start imagining something. You start imagining a future relationship will finally meet your unmet needs. But please understand that, which I'm saying since the beginning of the workshop, that is very important for you to understand your patterns first. You have to understand that, oh, I have been through something. Now I have to be aware about it. And in order to break that pattern, I have to work with a therapist or a counselor or a psychologist. And then getting into a relationship is something which is beneficial for me. Correct? Next is being overly responsible. Sometimes what happens is often we do most of the emotional work in the relationships, or we do most of the emotional works within ourselves as well. Talking to someone, giving out that vulnerable side of us, or just having a real talk with someone is everyone scared of, because somewhere along the lines you feel I might not be heard, I might be made fun of, people might not take me seriously, or people just might use that instant against me. Everything will come into the mind. You will always have a negative thinking towards a certain situation, which can lead to resentment and a lot of exhaustion, a lot of mental exhaustion. So it's very important for us to understand that if you have faced any kind of emotional availability in your childhood, it can manifest into different sectors. It can manifest into different ways, as I've rightfully mentioned here. Somewhere along the lines, you might not even understand that, oh, it has manifested in a certain way, but it definitely mostly will. And at that point of time, it's your responsibility to understand that when I'm feeling a certain way, I need to work on myself. And if I need to actually work on myself, I need to seek help. That is the first step. Let's go to the next slide. So we have now understood what would be the long-term impacts. Now let's come to the practical strategies. What can be done so that our journey of healing actually starts? Now please understand that these strategies are going to work, but if you actually want to be aware, if you actually want to dig deeper, seeking help is something which is definitely going to be beneficial. First is detached observation. First, pause and breathe. Take a moment before responding. In every conflict, just take a moment before responding. I know it's easier said than done, but try doing it. Next is step back mentally. You have to view the interaction like an observer and not as a participant per se. If I am talking with someone, if that conversation is getting escalated beyond control, I would observe the conversation as a third person rather than just reacting. Once we stop reacting, we start actually seeing the conflict. And the last is responding calmly, using neutral, simple language to protect your emotions. This will come with practice. You do it for one time or two times. It's not like it is going to completely change the way you start communicating with people. It doesn't work that way. It will definitely work when you start making a calculated effort to put this detached observation technique in every conflict you think you are facing. Now, just so that you understand what exactly detached observation might look like, it's a very small case overview for you. I'll read out for you. During dinner, Arya felt frustrated when her mother interrupted her while she was explaining her weekend plans. Let's just assume Arya is someone who's 25-year-old and who is working. Instead of reacting sharply, she took a slow breath and silently counted to 3. Here, she's trying to inculcate pause and breathe technique. She reminded herself, this is her inner monologue. She's expressing her concern, not trying to control me. Here she's trying to step back mentally. So when she spoke, Arya said, I understand your worries, but I like to finish sharing my plans first. Here, what she's trying to do, she's trying to set a very healthy boundary that, oh, I will say, I will put my views out. If you have something which can be countered, then just give me my space to talk, is what she's trying to do. But at the same point of time, she's not trying to hurt her mother. She's not trying to create a conflict. She's not trying to say things to her mother which might hurt her mother as well. So as a result, the conversation stayed respectful. There was no conflict. And Arya, somewhere throughout the conversation, felt more in control of her emotions while maintaining a positive connection with her mother. Correct? So this is what a detached observation can look like. Now, a question for all of you. After reading this case overview, do you think somewhere along the lines it might be possible for any one of you to actually inculcate this practice in your daily life? Okay, yes, Sri Lakshmi. Others? Yes. If any one of you have used this such detached observation without knowing that it is called detached observation, you can definitely open your mics and share your experience. Anyone? Sri Lakshmi, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, can you hear me? Because my
Yes,
voice.
yes, I can. Yes, I
Maybe.
can. Yes, I can.
Ma'am,
Mhm.
yes, like I use this technique, ma'am, because usually I used to snap at my parents because I
Mm-hmm.
get this angry due to my childhood trauma PTSD. I used to have this fast
Mm-hmm.
reaction overall, more to my parents. So nowadays, when I think and I respond like Arya did, I also take a breath. And sometimes about some 2 minutes, I may talk like I snap. Earlier, I used to, if one fight started, I would be continuing for some half an hour or
Mm-hmm.
about 45 minutes. I used to be in that condition
Correct.
some 3 months ago.
Correct.
Now
Correct.
am like when I practice it has become 5 minutes actually 50 earlier it actually came to 15 minutes then again it came to 5 minutes now it's like 2 minutes then that's side slowly it's like improving my state now I don't snap
Good.
much at them.
Good. So I'm happy about the fact that you have inculcated this strategy without actually knowing it's called what it is. So please continue doing that. You'll definitely see a change.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am,
Natalie.
from
Whenever
my
I
tribe I
had,
learned from other workshops.
oh, that's perfect. Perfect. Okay, Natalie. Whenever I had to end a conversation with my frustrated response, I used to write down things in a notebook instead of arguing. Perfect. I'm very happy about the fact that you're writing down something. So this is what one of the technique which we generally give out to our clients as well, where you can just start journaling. Correct? You can just put out your thoughts when you're very frustrated, when you're very angry, just putting it out on the paper will help you declutter your thoughts as well. And your reaction will be more rational. So I'm very happy about the fact, Natalie, that you're definitely doing that. Others, anyone else? Perfect. Perfect, Srilakshmi. We're going to come to the emotions. We're definitely going to come. Good job. Others, anyone wants to share their experience or anyone just resonates with this technique and will use in your relationships?
Can I?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
So whenever any conflict is happening, previously, like I used to be very frustrated and react immediately. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember somewhere I've read a quote saying that being as parents, it's their first time.
Mm-hmm.
They're also learning a lot of things. So I used to think like why they're not able to understand, why they're shouting. Some kind of frustration used to be there. So
Mm-hmm.
after that, I used to take a pause and think, yes, it is their first time as being parent. They are
Mm-hmm.
also learning. So
Good.
that is something helped me.
Definitely. I'm happy about the fact that you have developed a coping for yourself so that you are trying to dissipate the conflict. Thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts. Let's just go ahead. Yes, Vivek, definitely writing down negative thoughts and throwing in dustbin. That helps if it helps you works because somewhere along the lines you're just decluttering your mind. You are just not letting those negative thoughts overwhelm. So good job. Now let's go ahead. Let's just understand a long-term practical strategy which can be used by all of you. Now, what is that? Building self-awareness. It's very, very, very important for all of you to build self-awareness, which is what I've been saying since the beginning of the workshop. Understanding your patterns, understanding why parents behave in a certain way, viewing them as an individual and not your parent. I do understand that somewhere along the lines, all of you must feel that, oh, they are our parent, they are supposed to behave in a certain way. But somewhere along the lines, please understand that they are also an individual. They will also have their own experiences to look after and behave in a certain way. Correct? So let's just understand how can we build self-awareness, keeping a journal. It's very important to understand what you're feeling. If you're feeling dismissed, if you're feeling invalidated, if you're feeling controlled. All we know that I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling happy. It's very important for us to increase our emotional vocabulary, which I will tell you how to do that in the next slide. Next is reflect. Am I observing their behavior or am I personalizing it? That is what we do in detached observation. That we are just responding, we are just reacting. Correct? Let's just try observing their behavior from a third person perspective and see what our responses are going to be. If there is a huge drastic change in our responses, it means that we were personalizing it before. Correct? Next is paying attention to repeated situations. It is just if that is just a one-time event or that just happens again and again. Why do we try to pay attention to the repeated situations? So that we can understand the themes and we can understand that who exactly is someone who needs to work on. If it's you who needs to work in your relationship, then that is something you need to work around. If it's someone else, then that is where you need to understand that, oh, this is how the dynamics of the relationship are going to be. Yes, Akshita is how to not be emotionally dependent on others for validation. Okay. Akshita, you have to understand that this entire question or this entire issue can stem up from the fact that somewhere along the lines your emotions were not validated. And if they were not validated, which I said in the workshop before as well, that they probably weren't validated, and that's why we're seeking out the validation, which is absolutely normal for you to feel. That's a very human response of you. But at the same time, this problem is extremely multifaceted. There are multiple factors which we need to look after. Right now in this workshop, we are just looking at one point as to what an emotional unavailable parent can look like and how it can get manifested in an adult. But if you actually want to dig deeper, you can definitely get in touch with me later. Okay? Yes, Riju?
Yeah, so I was also about to ask the same thing. This emotional neglect in the childhood is what I feel as the root cause for my emotional dependency on others. It could be people, it could be some TV programs, anything. I use it as a coping mechanism for my emotional survival. I
Correct.
feel I don't I won't be comfortable or I'm not good enough if I don't have this connection with somebody. And I know it is not a healthy connection, it's just a coping mechanism. I got this realization only a couple of days ago, and as I was keeping on analyzing over that within myself, I understood that it is a pattern that has been with me since childhood. In childhood, it was about cricket. During my late teenage or maybe early 20s, it was with people or some TV programs or anything. Now it is texting a person every time. I mean, I just want to update everything to them. I feel I am complete or my day is complete only if I update it. But the thing is that they don't give me that priority. They just leave my messages on scene. They reply whenever they want. They wouldn't give me any replies for whatever I ask, or even in person. It is always I who have to put the effort. So
Correct.
I'm, yeah. So I just want to know how this can be dealt. Getting obsessive to a person or something else, it could be even a non-living thing, for our emotional survival, or it is used as a coping mechanism, which is completely unhealthy. I understand that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So to answer your question, Jeju, please understand that as you rightfully said that somewhere along the lines when you were a child, your emotional needs were not met. Correct? Then somewhere along the lines you might have done something. So if, like for example, if you score good marks or if you've done something good, that would have been your way of getting that validation from your parent, and that has somewhere along the lines been transferred in your relationship. Correct? Now, please
Yeah.
understand. Now, it is a very multifaceted topic. Like for example, something called as attachment style. Right? Attachment styles are developed throughout our lives. Now, when it comes to attachment styles, just because your emotional needs were not met, somewhere along the lines you might be anxiously attached to someone, right?
Yeah.
So in order to work around that attachment style, it is going to take a lot of time, because please understand that this attachment style was developed after years of the emotional neglect, right?
Hmm.
Correct?
Yeah.
So yes, there is a way where we can work around it. There is definitely a way where we can work around this attachment style when you feel extremely anxious and you have to keep on texting someone. But at the same time, right now, if you want a quick fix, I won't be able to give you that.
Okay.
Because yes, I can probably tell you strategies that build better boundaries. If someone is not giving you priority, if someone is not responding to your messages, you need to also understand when to stop texting, right?
Hmm.
Probably keeping your phone away for a period of time so that you do not get into that cycle of texting someone again and again, right? Trying to develop different hobbies or trying to distract yourself so that you do not fall into that trap of updating someone again and again. But these are strategies which will work for a short term. If you actually want to do the real work, if you actually want to go to the depth of it, if you actually want to, completely work around your attachment style, you will definitely have to come for a session. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Thank you so much.
meanwhile, just try limiting your urge. Try distracting yourself with something which you genuinely like doing, something you're passionate about, so that when you're passionate about something, you will like doing that. When you like doing something, you do not have time to think about other things. Correct? So
Okay.
try doing that. If it works, if it helps, let me know. If you want to come for a session, get in touch. Okay?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving a
Not a,
safe space.
not a problem. Yes, Sri Lakshmi?
Can I ask something? Ma'am, now
Yes.
a
Please go
peer,
ahead.
the previous person, the peer told she had this habit of texting someone or doing something for her
Mm-hmm.
emotional satisfaction. But ma'am, is it like I do this I mean, because I didn't have any friends, because I isolated myself due to trauma. I don't know how to manage the relationship, so I don't have much friends, ma'am. Only my sister and some and my mother's friend actually. Because I always
Mm-hmm.
had this relationship slipping away because of my own isolation, and also people
Mm-hmm.
don't understand our trauma because we can't openly reveal to them until a point. So they don't
Mm-hmm.
understand.
Mm-hmm.
Even now they don't know what was the issue. They just know I was dealing with something. So, ma'am, is it that so I don't know if we have a friend, if we have this new friend, is it that we have to always take the initiative to be close to them, like update them or etc. Or we tell right, this trauma actually makes us like overshare, overgive. So, is it that we have to find a balance with someone, like someone also reciprocating us when we have to wait for that, or we have to always like text or do something for others so that they become our friend. So how can we cultivate relationships in general?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that is my
Thank you
question,
so
ma'am.
much, Shalakmi, for asking this question.
Mm.
See, now it's very important for us to understand that when it comes to building boundaries with anyone, it is going to take time. Correct?
Okay.
But at the same time, it's very important for you to understand why exactly you're building the boundary so that the person feels that oh, she's building a boundary or you're doing it for yourself.
Okay,
Right?
ma'am.
Somewhere along the lines, if you feel that, oh, I want to build a boundary so that I want to safeguard myself and I want to take care of my mental health, that is when the real change will happen. If you're trying to do this for someone else, and if you're trying to prove a point, that will never work. Correct?
Mm. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am,
Any kind of relation-
Ma'am, I also had this friend, ma'am, who used to text me and update everything. I used to reciprocate, but somewhere along the line, I got drained because he was oversharing with me. So I felt drained because of my traumas and my PTSD. So then I actually put that end to a relationship because I was feeling drained somewhere. I couldn't take his emotions also into me, like as a friend, not even a love or something. It's just a friendship, ma'am. So I ended it there because I was getting overwhelmed at that point.
So, like for example, in this equation, you drew a boundary for yourself, right? Because you were getting overwhelmed. You did not do it for the other person, you did it for yourself. Correct? So that is what you have to start applying to all the relationships. Understood? Perfect. Let's just go ahead, everyone. Now, how exactly can we keep a journal? So here, I have put a picture in front of all of you, and here's a template. Let's just understand the picture first. So this picture is called as Wheel of Emotions. Now, all of us know that we feel a lot, but sometimes it's very difficult for us to put a label onto it that, oh, what is this feeling? I can't understand this feeling. I am angry, but I am disappointed. I am also feeling bad. I'm also feeling sad, but I'm numb at this point of time. Or there might also be a situation where you feel happy, but you feel sad also, which is called as a bittersweet feeling. It's very important for you to understand what exactly are you feeling so that you react in a situation as per your emotions. So this is a very small template of wheel of emotion. Here there are a couple of primary emotions, and those emotions then later gets opened up and it gets converted into different type of emotions. So just a request to all of you. Sadly, just give me 1 second. Just a request for all of you. If you want to increase your emotional vocabulary, if you want to actually understand what you're feeling, you have to just Google something called as Wheel of Emotion. There is a website called as 6 Seconds. Just go on that website and just read that article. It will help you understand a lot about your emotions. Correct? Now, how
Can you repeat?
I'm sorry, Chandana.
Can you repeat your directing us to the website, right? Or else can
Six
you drop
seconds.
in the comment box?
6seconds.org. The website is written here.
Yeah, thank you.
Not a problem. Anyone, any doubts? Any question about the picture given to you?
Ma'am,
Yes, Sri Lakshmi.
ma'am, I got disconnected, ma'am. Ma'am, did you mean to tell that we have to keep boundaries and also have reciprocation in any relationship, right? You told right
Correct.
like
Yes.
that.
Yes. Perfect.
Or we have to also contain our mind, like we shouldn't get drained by others' emotions, right? We have to balance, right?
Correct.
For a good friendship.
Yes,
Okay, ma'am.
perfect, Sri Lakshmi. Perfect. Yes, perfect. Yes, I need to answer your question. This basically means a feeling or a state of great happiness. So please understand that these emotions are in a form of different ranges. Correct? The first primary emotions are our basic emotions and how exactly they get converted into different types of emotions. Now, like for example, joy plus trust could be love. Anger plus anticipation could be aggressiveness. Anger plus disgust could be contempt. Disgust plus sadness could be remorse. So there are mix of emotions as well. So please, a request to all of you, start increasing your emotional vocabulary. Try understanding what exactly you're feeling and respond in a certain way. Now, a couple of questions. Once you start understanding what you're feeling, the first question you need to ask yourself is, what did I feel? Take the reference of the wheel of emotion. What is your primary emotion? Prime emotion are the one which I mentioned in the first circle. Second is mention the specific word from the wheel. Just mention what you're feeling. If you think it's multiple feelings, just mention all the feelings. Then what trigger it? Why are you feeling in a certain way? Mention that about the situation. Who was involved? Mention the name of the person involved. And how strong it was. Was it mild? Was it moderate? Was it strong? Your emotional reaction. And the last is how did I respond? I have put a template for this in the next slide. We'll come back to that later. First, we'll understand that how can we reflect. Okay. So now we are done with the journaling part. The next strategy was reflection. An example is put up in front of all of you. Is this behavior or am I personalizing it? When you think this way, these are a couple of questions you need to ask yourself, or you need to just start writing. What did they actually do or say? Mention that in brief. Am I assuming the intent or am I adding extra meaning as per my perception? Yes or no? Does this remind me of my past experiences? Again, yes or no? Sometimes what happens is some of the conversations or some of the experiences which we have in our current present self, we could take that back from a past experience and we start correlating that to that experience. Don't do that. Try to be in the present. Okay? Fourth is, how would I view this if this has happened to a friend? Think about the situation from a third perspective way. Last is, what's a healthier way I can respond right now? So this is a couple of questions which can be used as a reflection for all of you. Now let's just understand a small case. We are again revisiting the case which we were talking about Arya. I'm going to just skip through this slide because all of you have read it. I'll just keep this for 1 minute so that everyone can just read through the case overview. So during dinner, Arya felt frustrated when her mother interrupted while she was explaining her weekend plans. Instead of reacting sharply, she took a slow breath and silently counted to 3. Pause and breathe. Detached observation is here. She reminded herself, she's expressing her concern, not trying to control me. She's stepping back mentally. When she spoke, she calmly said, I understand your worries, but I'd like to finish sharing my plans. So as a result, she felt in more control of her emotions, maintaining a positive connection with her mother. Correct? So now, this is a case study we have already seen. Let's just see how a journal entry will look like. What did I feel? Primary emotion was frustration. Specific word from the wheel, she was irritated. What triggered? The situation is mentioned. Who was involved? Her mother. How strong was it? Moderate. And how did she respond? So please understand that when it comes to actually understanding your patterns and when it actually comes to being self-aware, it is going to be work. You will have to revisit the conversation, you will have to revisit your experience, and you will have to actually write it down so that you understand what you feel. And this is something which you have to inculcate on a daily basis. Correct? So I hope this journal entry gives you a good insight as to how exactly you are supposed to make the use of wheel of emotions and the reflection prompt given to you. Let's go ahead. Now, this can look like Arya's mental diary. She could think, oh, I often interpret interruptions as control rather than concern. My frustration may come from past experiences of feeling unheard. Taking a pause helps me respond thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally. And calm communication helps preserve both my boundaries and the relationship. So once she's understood what has happened with her mother, when she's making a journal entry of it, and then she's reflecting on it. So during every conflict or during each conflict, it is your responsibility to understand what are the patterns you are exhibiting. If you're exhibiting a certain pattern, is there a need for reflection of it? If there is a need of reflection of it, then actively sitting with yourself and writing it down definitely helps. Let's go ahead. Now, we are done with the strategy part. Before we move ahead with the grounding exercise, does any one of you have any doubt with respect to whatever we have discussed up till now?
Ma'am.
Yes, Sri Lakshmi.
Can you tell that passive and emotional parenting means?
He won't be able to share the PPT
Not
with
share, ma'am.
everyone.
That just not need to share, ma'am. Just that what it was, emotional and passive
Oh,
identity. It was not clear.
okay, so this workshop might be uploaded on YouTube in a couple of weeks. You can go on YouTube and then you can check out the slide. Okay, Shlakshmi? Anyone else? Any doubts? Please feel free to ask the questions which you think which are in your head. Anyone? Okay, let's go ahead. Let's just understand what are grounding exercises. So, what are they? They helps us staying calm, present, and emotionally balanced. Now, why do we need grounding exercises? Sometimes what happens is when we are going through a certain experience, and at that point of time when our emotions are too loud and too strong, we don't know how to balance it, how to balance ourselves at that point of time. So, a couple of grounding exercises definitely help us to see the situation in a much more rational way. When? When you feel like your emotions start escalating and you feel extremely reactive or extremely frustrated. So we are going to conduct a couple of grounding exercises right now during the workshop. So I hope everyone will be kind enough to listen to my instructions and practice the grounding in your own space. Sri Lakshmi, I will take this up doubt later on. We are going to conduct a grounding exercise, just requesting you to pay attention right now. So let's just start with deep breathing. I want everyone to take a slow breath in through your nose for 4 counts. I will start with the count. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now please exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. I want everyone to do this for 2 to 3 times. I'm going to start with the count. I'm going to start with the counter count. I hope everyone is listening to what I'm saying and practicing the grounding. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it gently. Keep your eyes closed. 4, 3, 2, 1. For the last time, everyone, I hope everyone is practicing the grounding exercise. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. Close your eyes. 4, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. If anyone actively did the grounding exercise, can you please share your experience with me? Just a couple of lines. Anyone? Chandana, do you want to share your experience?
I felt a little calmer and peace breathing.
Okay. Others? Now let's understand why exactly did we do this? How does that help us? So please understand that grounding exercise, specifically the deep breathing one, it slows down your stress response and it calms your body. If someone was stressed at this point of time, they might have felt a little more level-headed. If someone was not stressed, they were a little laid back, they might have felt the same. So it completely depends on what kind of situation you are in. If you're too stressed and if you want to ground yourself, you can definitely use this. Why? Because it clears your mind by giving the brain more oxygen. It helps you respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. You can use this in every setting, at your workplace, in your relationships. when you have a conversation with a friend, if you think situation is getting escalated, you can definitely use this so that you can react impulsively. So sorry, you can react more thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Let's just understand one more grounding exercise. This would be more related to your body scan. This is a self-care ritual. You have to do this every day before you go to sleep. Now, I want everyone to just notice where your body feels tight. Like, for example, if your neck muscles are feeling tight, if your ankle is feeling tight, if your wrists are feeling tight, if somewhere along the lines you feel like my lower back is hurting, just notice where your body feels tight. It could be any body part. If your forehead is hurting, if you have a lot of if you have a lot of pain near your eyebrows or something along those lines, just notice where your body is feeling tight. Just close your eyes and just breathe into that area. Just keep on focusing on that area where you're feeling the pain, where you're feeling the tightness. And just hold on to that muscle for 2 to 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And release. If you keep on doing that for good 10 to 15 minutes every day before you go to sleep, you will see a change where you might feel a little more grounded, you might feel a little more calm, and you also might feel that, oh, I'm in control of my body. I know where it's hurting me and I can heal it in a way that I can target the muscles for at least 2 to 3 seconds and I can release the pain. So again, how it helps? It reduces your muscle tension developed due to any heavy emotion. Sometimes you must have observed that, oh, I am too stressed. And when you go to sleep later in the night, you just feel like your body is very tired. Or when you get up in the morning after a very big argument with anyone, you just feel like I'm feeling drained. I just do not have the energy to function today. So doing this grounding exercise, which is called as body scan, before going to sleep every day will definitely help you. Why? Because it activates your body's parasympathetic system, which is a calming system of your body. It helps your body and your brain stay clear and focused. So requesting all of you to usually inculcate this in your self-care routine. So we are done with our workshop. We have come to the end of it. If you have any doubts, if you have any questions, now is the time to ask me. Anything you want an advice on, if you want a suggestion on, you can definitely ask. Okay, others?